That tells you everything, and that's why we need to save his life before they kill him. First, when he arrived in Rwanda, he was taken to a torture house. In the torture house, he was held bound, like tied by the hands and the legs, and he was blindfolded for an entire 4 days. And he's 67 years old. No human should have to be treated this way. We have no animosity, no hatred for anyone. I think at the end of the day, as long as the lesson has been shared, the lessons from the genocide have been shared today, the movie Hotel Rwanda is being shown around the world, is being studied by
Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your location. My name is Marieme. Welcome to our channel. Welcome to Gakondo Yacu Rwanda channel. Welcome in our first English edition. So, guys, here we don't joke with lies. So you have more than 10,000 reasons to subscribe to our channel. As always, present here is with me my colleague Ali, such a good guy. So let me invite him to say hi to all of you who are tuning in and to welcome our guest. Ali, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Maria, thank you very much. Welcome all. Let me start by recognizing our spectators, our viewers, followers, and friends who never cease to show their unwavering support through this struggle of justice, equality, and the revolution on making in our country, Rwanda. Thank you very much all. Welcome to our new edition in English. Today we are hosting Karine Kanimba, the daughter of Paul Rusesabagina, a very famous dissident of authoritarian regime of Kigali. Today we are having the chance to host you, Karine Kanimba, and we are very glad for that. Can you please greet our spectators?
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. And I say hi to all the viewers and spectators, and thank you for following the show.
Thank you very much. It is our great honor to host you today. So we are going to be talking about some of your father's case, what we've been seeing through the media, and of course you will take us through the verdict of his case and so many more. Let me start by Karine, we've seen the way you proved beyond any doubt that you are really pressing on to pursue the justice of your father after he has been kidnapped and jailed by authoritarian regime of Kagame. And now you can take us through his journey as a philanthropist, credited with saving more than 1,000 people during 1994 genocide, and as a dissident who happened to be kidnapped and jailed in Kigali. Karine.
Well, thank you. Thank you for this question. So my father has been a humanitarian for many years. As many of you know, during the genocide, he saved 1,268 lives. And I mean this specifically because every life matter. Every Rwandan life that he sheltered in the hotel during the genocide matters. These are people who today have families, they have kids, they have grandkids, and they're people who are alive. And the fact my father's role during the genocide is what has allowed that to be the case. And so we're grateful to him, and I know all these people are grateful to him for having risked his life to save theirs. So during the genocide, he, as many of you know and have seen in the movie as well, or have read in his book, he used his courage, his strength, and his network, and any resources at his disposal to call for help during the genocide and to try to protect all the people that were sheltered inside the hotel. After the genocide, we were forced to flee Rwanda because there was an attempt against his life, assassination attempts. And so that led us to Belgium, where he started a taxi company, and he was raising 6 children, myself and my sister included. He adopted us after the genocide, after looking for us around everywhere to get us to safety. And so now he didn't have 4 children, but he had 6 and a family of 8 to care for. And so he did everything in his power to make it here in Belgium, to start fresh, as many people who survived the genocide had to start fresh again. And he continued his advocacy. In 2004, the movie Hotel Rwanda was released, and that allowed him to have a larger platform. In that platform, he used it around the world to bring attention not only to the genocide, what had happened, the lessons that he learned, the lessons that he hopes other people learn. And then in doing so, he was also pointing to the human rights abuses, the violations that were being perpetrated by this government. They first offered him jobs and positions in the current government of Rwanda, but he refused every single one of those jobs and instead told them that what they needed to work on was reconciliation for Rwandans, because without reconciliation, there is no progress. They did not like that, especially the current dictator. Kagame did not like being told no, and he did not like being challenged in this way. And so he went after him. He tried to take away the bravery, take away the courage that he had, to take away the story of my father saving all these lives, to try to discredit him. He tried to assassinate him. He tried to discredit him via printing lies after lies in the Rwandan media. But that did not work. And my father continued his advocacy and his work for justice, for peace and reconciliation. Between 2005 and 2010, my father's foundation also tried to bring school material for students around in Rwanda. He had picked varieties of students of all ethnic groups and of all regions of Rwanda to provide scholarships. And as soon as the government learned about the scholarship program that my father was funding students' schools, they intercepted this plan and stopped him from continuing to help those students through school. And so every attempt that my father has made to not only bring attention on the human rights abuses perpetrated by the government, or his attempts to help students or young children in Rwanda to go through school, or his attempts to reconcile the Rwandan people, whether outside or inside of Rwanda, the Rwandan government consistently intercepted these and tried to stop him and discredit him and rather have him and silence him. But my father is brave and persistent and courageous. And so he continued, and that led him to the point where the Rwandan government had to spend millions to get a private jet to kidnap him and bring him against his will to Rwanda, and in violation of international law, to torture him in Rwanda and then jail him, which is the situation that he is in today.
Thank you very much, Karine, for highlighting the life of your father as a philanthropist, and now you're telling us all the struggles he has been through as a dissident of authoritarian regime. We all have known Rusesabagina, your father, as a hero, someone who's credited for rescuing the lives of people, thousands of people. And now the regime of Kigali is trying to discredit him, which is very, very ridiculous. We will go more and talk about his verdict, the verdict of his case, and so many more. But after that, let me introduce also this to my colleague, Marie-Aimée. Maybe would love also to ask you some questions concerning your father.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Karine. Now I understand why you have a jealous government. So I think it will be difficult for each one not to be jealous to a such great man. So my question now, Karine, is soon after your father had been kidnapped, it has been shown that he was held in such a good place with a big bed, so which surprised many people, included myself. So I think every prison was dreaming that it may be good to be jailed in Rwanda. So that's why I want you to bring us to tell us the real conditions he's living in now. So we know to be jailed in Rwanda, it's not simple. So can he get in touch with his family? Can he have some visitors? How is life? How is his life today? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Aimee, for this question. So first, when he arrived in Rwanda, he was taken to a torture house. In the torture house, he was held bound, like tied by the hands and the legs, and he was blindfolded for an entire 4 days. And he's 67 years old. No human should have to be treated this way. It's not how justice works. It's not how humans should work with each other. He was held like this, and he was tortured. He was interrogated without the presence of an attorney, and they attempted to force him to sign documents in that torture house. 2 people came to visit him during those 4 days. The first is the Secretary General of the Rwandan Investigation Bureau, Secretary Jano Ruhinga. And he came along with the Prosecutor General of Rwanda and asked my father to sign a false confession that says that the president of Zambia had given them money for the FLN. My father refused to sign it, even though he was already being tortured, even though he was in the worst conditions that a person can be in. He refused because it's simply not true, and you cannot force a person to sign to admit to something that they haven't done. And my father, who is courageous, refused. They left, and then angry, and then they came back, and then a few days later, my father was taken and paraded in front of the Rwandan Investigation Bureau. Those are the images that we saw on the 31st of August, the first time that they showed him. He had been tortured 4 days prior. Upon being paraded, he was then taken back to the Remera police station, and the same 2 people came back and tried to force him again. They said, "Have you thought about it?" And they told him, if you sign this, tomorrow we'll let you go. Of course, my father didn't sign, and they just told him to leave his office, and he was taken back to a cell. Afterwards, he was transferred to the Mageragere prison. At the prison, it's the conditions, as you can imagine. Not only, it was Mandela, I think, who said, Nelson Mandela said, the way that you treat the prisoners, the way that a country treats its prisoners is representative of the way they treat their people. And it is exactly that. The prison the conditions are horrible. My father was first held in solitary confinement for over 250 days. The impact, the impact of solitary confinement is very harsh on an individual, on his mental health, on his physical health, in that he had no windows, no room, no light. He was alone in a room for over 250 days and denied access, any human contact. We made a lot of noise. We asked for all the authorities who are witnessing this to put an end to this. And thankfully, the Rwandan government listened to that warning, and they removed him from solitary confinement. But since then, they have continued to forbid him to make any contact with anyone in the prison. This means that even today, everyone in the prison is not allowed to get close to him or to speak with him. And that is very, very difficult on his mental health, on his psychological health, because my father not only is a very sociable person and likes to speak to people, but even as a human, a person who doesn't necessarily like that should not be subjected to that level of torture, because this amounts to psychological torture. Actually, the UN Nelson Mandela rules state that holding somebody in solitary confinement for 15 consecutive days amounts to psychological torture. And that is the situation that my father has been held in the prison in Mageragere. in terms of the food and the nutrients and the access that he has, just recently, he's been now allowed to go to pray, to go to the church, to the chapel to pray. Before they even forbid him from doing that. And even now, when he does go, everyone is not allowed to speak with him. When he enters, they tell all the other prisoners to not speak. They put him in a corner by himself. And then before, when the church service is over, he leaves first. And then as soon as he's been walked out, everyone is allowed to speak. So they're really making it a point to isolate him because they know of the psychological impact this has on an individual. So we pray every day that he remains strong emotionally, mentally, and physically, because the conditions he's being held in are inhumane. He also is not allowed to consult any documents. His lawyers try to bring documents to him. That's the law. That's normally permitted by any legal system internationally and in Rwanda. But in my father's case, they're forbidding him from reading or holding any documents. They had forbidden him from holding even the entire case file against him. When the judgment, the verdict was released on September 20th, they had refused to give him the full content of their judgment, even the judgment that puts him into prison for 25 years. They didn't want him to read it. This is torture on an individual. And that's because they know that the more information he has, the more he can speak up for himself and the more he can defend himself. But they don't want him to defend himself. They want to silence him and ensure that he no longer speaks. And so our everyday struggle is to try to not only alleviate the way that he's being treated, the unfairness of his living conditions, but also to try to get him help and put enough pressure, political pressure, for him to be released as soon as possible. And one last point I would add, and most important one, is his health. He's a 67-year-old man. He's a cancer survivor and has cancer in remission, which means that he needs to be treated. He needs to be followed. He needs to be examined by professionals, oncologists and others who have expertise in his condition. And they're refusing that as well. They give him the medication very inhumanely. Even the medication is not his medication. This is medication that they choose for him, not the ones that the Belgians delivered for him at the prison. They are also not giving him the full, he has not met any independent doctor since he's been in Rwanda. Before, when he arrived after the torture, he was taken 3 times to the hospital, and the Rwandan government refuses to give us the details of those hospital visits. And that makes us fear the worst, because why would they hide this from us? Why would they hide this from his doctor? So all of these there are legal concerns, there are physical concerns, there are psychological concerns, there are many, many things that are wrong with his current living conditions and the legality of his detention. And to conclude, he was kidnapped. He should not be in Rwanda. He should not be in a prison in Rwanda. If they wanted to try him, they should have used legal procedure, already established legal procedures to get him to Rwanda. And the fact that they kidnapped him speaks to the fact that they have no legitimate evidence against him, because no other country could believe them enough to work with them on extraditing him to Rwanda. So that tells you everything. And that's why we need to save his life before they kill him.
So thank you very much. Thank you for those details, which are so sad. And I want to notify that the Remera police station is where Kizito has been tortured and killed. So conditions in which your father is currently living. So the fact that he is isolated, has no freedom to talk to other people is heartbreaking. But on the other hand, it also shows their cruelty and how they must feel jealous, and how they may be intimidated by him because he was given the prize, which is not given to many people. I'm not going to take a long time. Ali, if you have another question, go on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marie-Aimée. This is so sad. There's been nothing more than a shame trial on your father's case. And this what they are trying to just put Rusesabagina on this discussion that his life also is being in a very uncomfortable condition, and this what they are doing now, emotional torture, physical torture, is totally unacceptable. So we urge every Rwandan, everyone who can speak against this, let's join hands together to stop this, to even call the international communities to come and join us hands to stop this torture by this authoritarian regime of Kigali. It is really meticulously said that the regime of Kigali has been kidnapping people, have been killing people, hundreds of people have been kidnapped, and more thousands have been killed in their jails, in the prisons, which is make Rwanda as the most unsafe country in this whole world. Karini Kanimba, let me embark on your course of action. You are really very brave and courageous young woman who had to endure all those tragedy of your father being kidnapped, tortured, betrayed, and dragged into a plane to Kigali. And there have been some resolution. There have been international resolution, and of course, your resolution as a family. Would you like to take us through those resolutions for the viewers and the spectators to know more about your father's verdict? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ali. I think first, I'd like to say that our family, and I know many other families, have made the resolution individually to, as families, to not be intimidated, to not be silenced, and not to be afraid of this regime. Too often people are kidnapped. My father is not the only one. Too often people are killed or disappeared, and then nobody speaks, and that allows the regime to continue to speak, to do this, because they realize that no one says anything. And so from the moment our father was kidnapped, we made the decision not to be afraid and to continue to speak up on our father's behalf and on behalf of every other victim of this regime, because we have to show them that we're not okay with it, and we have to show them that there is a way to treat humans that doesn't involve torture, kidnapping, and violations of every human principles that are out there. And so we've continued, and we will continue to speak until our father is released, and until the regime stops these methods that are illegal and inhumane. And so since then, other people have joined us, not only our family, but also Rwandans around the world, Rwandans in Rwanda. Unfortunately, the ones in Rwanda who speak up, as we've seen in the last few weeks, are being jailed. Other people who even mentioned my father's name are being imprisoned for speaking up. And that shows you the length of which this regime is willing to go, and the reasons why we must not be intimidated and that we must continue to speak. Since then as well, many people, as I mentioned, Rwandans in Rwanda and outside of Rwanda have spoken, but also other governments. You know, you have the European Union that adopted a resolution asking for my father's immediate release and repatriation home. We have the Barcelona Bar Association, the International Bar Association, the European Bars Federations have also asked for my father's immediate release, as well as the US Congress through a bipartisan and bicameral letter of both Democrats and Republicans asking for my father to be returned home. The US State Department has made a commitment to ensuring my father gets home. So we know that many, many people are speaking up, are advocating, and are not crossing their arms and watching this in complicity or in silence. However, we need more voices. I think part of the reason my father is still alive today is because we're speaking about him. The reason my father is breathing is because attention has been kept on his case. And we are very fortunate that is the case, but we also recognize that not everyone is lucky, is this lucky. And that is why we must continue to speak and to shed light on these trends, these abhorrent trends that the Rwandan government continues to inflict on its people. And so I think we'll continue. I think whatever other country, whatever other organization, whatever other people, even individuals are willing to take a stand and call this out, we will engage them. And we hope and encourage all other families who are also victims of this to also stand up and to also speak, because we need many voices, and silence has never gotten the Rwandan government to do anything. So silence is not an option.
Thank you very much, Karine. You've said so many things that are very, very, very important, especially those resolutions taken by European Union and Barcelona and all those you mentioned. It is really sad to hear that even the people can keep quiet, seeing people being tortured, seeing people being kidnapped, disappeared in their own motherland. So it is really saying that as Rwandans, we must know, they should know that breaking silence is the only option we have right here, right now. Because as you said, of course, we need more voices. We need more voices to put an end at this particular torture of the dictatorial regime of Kagame. We need more people to speak up. Let's break the silence, Rwandans. Let's talk about not only Paul Rusesabagina, who had been kidnapped and jailed in Rwanda as a high profile, but there's also many people who are being kidnapped, many people are being disappeared in our own motherland, and people kept quiet. So it's totally unacceptable to keep things like that, because we are living in a moment right now in history whereby the hunger for justice, the anger, to fight for the self-interested, the trivial, the petty, it's just making people now willing to go beyond every measure to stop it, especially Rwandans. We've seen many Rwandans taking into the roads to reclaim their rights. This is the things we must do. We must speak out. We must join hands. We must try to bring to the world what Rwandan dictatorial regime is doing to its own people. And this case of Rusesabagina in particular is one case that has brought the world to the knowledge that dictatorial regime of Kagame is willing to do anything to silence those dissidents, to silence those vocal critics who are able to show the world what's happening in Rwanda. So I thank you really indeed for your contribution, Karine, for trying to highlight the verdict of the case of your father and tell the world. So I can assure you, you are not alone in this. We will try our best. We bend over backwards to try to break the silence and let the world know what's happening in Rwanda. Thank you very much indeed. My colleague, Marie-Aimée, I think maybe you have a question to ask for Karine. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Karine. So you have almost said everything. So we need to stand up. We need to bring the truth out. Everyone has to know what is happening in Rwanda, because our regime, the Rwandan regime, is it has such a way of working as a mafia regime. So it has no limit. We have already seen. So, Karine, my question is, the people your father saved, in fact, who pointed out in the movie Hotel Rwanda, when he had been kidnapped, they changed the story. They make it seem like he was mistreating them. So what was your reaction on that? Thank you.
So this is something that the Rwandan government has been doing for many years. Since after my father refused the job offers from Kagame, they went out to look for many people who were in the hotel. They threatened them. Many people were threatened. Many people were given jobs, ministership in the government, whatever they wanted, in order to change their stories. And unfortunately, this is what dictatorships do. Kagame is a typical dictator, and he's following by the book what dictators do. And that means threaten people until they say what you want them to say. So I don't blame the people who are in this position, because their lives are at risk and they need to save their lives too. What I think is the most important for me and for my family and for my father is that those people are alive. They're alive, that he saved them, and they have kids and their grandkids and they're living. And if it wasn't for my father, they wouldn't be. And the fact that some can go on TV today and say what the regime, the dictatorship wants them to say, is because my father saved their lives. So their presence on those TV shows is an example that my father is truly a hero. So whatever they say, because they're under the gun, because they're being threatened or paid or forced to lie, I can't blame them. It's a dictatorship. I just hope and pray for peace and calm in their hearts, and for peace and calm for Rwandans altogether. And I hope that they continue to stay alive, because that's my father's wish, and that's what he made happen in 1994. We have no animosity, no hatred for anyone. I think at the end of the day, as long as the lesson has been shared, the lessons from the genocide have been shared today, the movie Hotel Rwanda is being shown around the world, is being studied by students. So many students, actually, it's a requirement across America in many schools to go through the curriculum of reading his book to understand what happened in Rwanda. So whatever lies the Rwandan government prints won't change that. And Hotel Rwanda is part of the culture now. It's part of history. It's part of our conversations and lessons on history. My father's bravery has been recognized by the highest office of the United States government, by many organizations and many human rights groups. And that won't change either, because those people are still alive. And so we're not affected by the propaganda, by the change of stories. I think we're just grateful and thankful that those people are breathing and have families and whatever they're being subjected to in order to change their stories. I just pray for peace and calm for them.
Yeah, such a good and a special family. It's hard for me to understand how you don't hold a grudge against those people who have been rescued by your father, and yet they go around spreading lies. They are on the side of that government. Whenever I think about it, so I get so angry. I get so angry because they had the chance of being saved with their families, with their kids, with their wives, and other people may have much money, but they didn't have that chance of finding someone to pay and to be saved. Personally, sometimes when I think about them, I feel disappointed. I think they shouldn't act that way. Time is not on our side. So Ali, if you have another question, you can ask it, and I'll come back to.
Thank you very much, Marie-Aimée. Thank you also, Colleen. This is really overwhelming when we see things like this happening in our country. That's why I'm telling you, there's no one has written our destiny for us. No one has written our history for us. We have to come and write our own history. Let's not allow the RPF to change our history, to just put all the lavish on our faces, because we can't speak for ourselves, because we are overwhelmed by the fear. Let's not be overwhelmed by the fear. Let's just stand up and fight for our own rights, because otherwise the RPF is going to finish us all, because they are doing this for many Rwandans in and outside the country, which is really totally unacceptable. So this is our cross to bear, and we must stand up, bear our cross as Rwandans, and put a stop at this tragedy in our country. And this is a revolution. This is a revolution, because, you know, Rusesabagina is one of an exemplary person who happened to be Rwandan. And what he did, his noble and selfless act, contributed so much in the building of Rwandan reconciliation. You know, so that journey he embarked on really can show how he's noble and how he's hero for so many people in not only in Rwanda, but also the whole world. We've seen so many things happen, even during the time of George Bush, where he just was awarded by the Medal of honor of the Medal. So it shows how he is very well respected. But when you see how the government of Rwanda is trying to print some other image on your father's credit, it's really very sad. So I would say, please don't keep quiet while you are seeing people being oppressed, being tortured, being treated inhumanly, because it may not be on your side, but it's on Rwandan's side. And we've started this revolution, and we will fight and we will press on, because I strongly believe with patience and some sort of determination, we will reach where we want to be. So we have to press on for justice. We don't have time to cry. We don't have time to feel sorry for ourselves. We've got a job to do. We've got this to do it. It's us. If not us, who's gonna do it for us? No one. So we have a daily responsibility in our hands, and we must let the world know. As a youth, as Rwandans, we must speak up and let the world know what's really happening in Rwanda and their authoritarian regime. Kanimba, so we are coming to the end of our edition today. But before we go, I would like to ask you, what's your take on this? What's your advice to fellow Rwandans concerning this oppression in Rwanda? You know, we've been seeing so many oppression in Rwanda lately, and the whole world has come to speak about Rwanda, how they are treating people, the Human Rights Watch, the report of Amnesty International, and so many international organizations have been speaking lately about Rwanda. So what's your take on this, and what's your advice to other fellow Rwandans who are seeing this and keeping quiet on this operation? Thank you.
Thank you. I would say that I would tell all Rwandans to know that the world sees what's happening. They know what's happening, and they see the repression and the cycle of abuse that the Rwandan people are under. What's happened is that the Rwandan government, with all the money that they receive from all these outside powers, is crushing our voices, is through propaganda, through paid Twitter trolls and bots and social media, whether physically or virtually. And our voices, but the world knows, all these human rights organizations know, the neighbors of Rwanda know. And it's important to continue to speak and to continue to allow, it's important to not allow the propaganda machine to crush our voices, because they need to be heard. And that's what's keeping the world from paying attention, is that they hear, they hear what the regime wants them to hear, when actually underneath those few people that speak on behalf of the regime, there are hundreds and millions of people whose voices need to be heard and who have been repressed. And we know, the world knows what repression is. We've seen, history has demonstrated what regimes like the dictatorship of Rwanda can do. And so I encourage people not to be afraid. I encourage people to continue to speak, to use their platforms, and to find every opportunity that they have to share their repression, to share their stories with the world, with anyone who will listen, because this is how we can share the truth, and this is how change will come. There has been many examples of freedom fighters and activists and advocates. And what we've seen, what's important is that for change to come, people need to get engaged. People need to stand up. People need to speak. And that comes from the people. It doesn't come from it's not one person, it's many people. So I encourage everyone to stand up, to speak, and to share your stories, because your stories matters, your lives matter, and we are responsible for our future and our children's future. So in respect of that, I encourage everyone to speak up, to stand up, and to show the world what Rwanda it truly is like, and demand change.
Thank you very much. Truth be told, now we are in a revolution on making, and we won't stop at anything. So these dictators, especially Kagame, they have to know that we are not going to stop at anything unless we reach to the top of revolution we started. Thank you very much for being with us, Karine Kanimba. And I thank you, all of our spectators, for following us today. This was our first edition in English. And now we've been hosting Karine Kanimba, telling us a lot more about his father verdict and how we can fight against the oppression in Rwanda. So now we've come to wind up our edition today. I thank you all, and I would urge you to subscribe to our channel down there, and like and share, please, and give us some comments how you see it, and if you like it, please let us know. We love you. Thank you very much, my colleague.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Karine Kanimba. Thank you, Ali. So what I can say is that Rwandans, please don't be mental servant. You know, you have to say what is happening. The world needs to know. Everyone needs to know. It's a fight. You have to do it. You have to fight. We have to fight. We have to fight, so we will get out of this situation. So let's end up on the word of Martin Luther King. He said that the problem is not our oppressor. The problem is someone who is watching and still keeping quiet. So thank you very much. We love you, and please subscribe. Bye-bye.